The war had raged for 17 long years. Across the stars, the Scifi Empire and the United Human Federation had clashed in brutal conflict. The Scifi were an ancient species of towering, armored insectoids, their bodies encased in chitin harder than steel. Their fleets outnumbered the humans 3-1, and their warriors were stronger, faster, and bred solely for war. The Federation had fought bravely, but their colonies were burning. Their fleets were dwindling. It was only a matter of time before Earth itself fell. That Scifi knew it, humanity knew it, and then everything changed. The turning point, Tarsus IV. The Scifi invasion of Tarsus IV was supposed to be routine. The planet, a vital human outpost, had held out longer than expected. Still, against the might of the Scifi legions, resistance was futile. Grand Marshal Vrash of the Scifi, a seasoned commander with over 2 centuries of victories, observed the battlefield from his command center. He had studied human tactics for years. They were resourceful, certainly, but predictable. Their greatest strength was adaptability, an annoying trait, but ultimately insufficient against Scifi superiority. As his legions advanced, he saw the human forces retreating toward the city of New Haven. Just as expected, they would make their last stand there, and by day's end, the planet would belong to the Empire. But something was wrong. The human forces were too calm. There were no desperate last-minute counterattacks, no suicide runs, no frantic distress signals. Instead, the human officers seemed almost confident. And then the ground trembled. At first, Vrash assumed it was orbital bombardment, but as the tremors grew stronger, he realized the vibrations were rhythmic, like footsteps. The arrival of the Warbeasts. The first Warbeast burst through the smoke like a nightmare given flesh. It stood 20 feet tall, its massive form covered in thick, plated armor that shimmered with an unnatural energy field. Its 4 muscular arms flexed as it let out a sound, a deep, guttural growl that sent a shiver through even the hardened Scifi warriors. Then another emerged, and another. Within minutes, hundreds of these creatures stood at the human front lines, their eyes glowing with intelligent fury. Vrash felt an emotion he had not known in centuries. Fear. The Warbeasts charged. The Scifi warriors opened fire, their plasma rifles blazing, but the Warbeasts moved too fast. Plasma bolts sizzled harmlessly against their reinforced hides, their adaptive bio-armor absorbing the energy. Those that managed to land a shot barely slowed the creatures down. Then the slaughter began. The Warbeasts hit the Scifi lines like living hurricanes of destruction. One of the beasts ripped a Scifi soldier in half with its claws. Another lifted an armored tank, crushed it like paper, and hurled it into a battalion. A Scifi warlord, armed with a heavy disruptor cannon, stood his ground. He fired a blast that could tear through starship hulls. The Warbeast took the hit directly to the chest and kept coming. It reached the warlord before he could fire again. A single bite ended him. The Scifi commanders screamed into their comms, demanding reinforcements, but there were none. The Warbeasts had already broken their flanks, tearing through their legions with brutal efficiency. And then the real horror set in. These creatures were not mindless beasts. They were coordinated. A pack with a single mind. Human commanders issued orders through neural uplinks, directly linked to the Warbeasts' genetically enhanced minds. The creatures moved in perfect sync, adjusting their tactics in real time. A group of Warbeasts flanked the Scifi artillery positions, tearing through defenses before the gunners could react. Others set traps, herding the enemy into kill zones where human snipers picked them off with brutal precision. It was no longer a battle. It was a massacre. Within 2 hours, the mighty Scifi 9th Legion, once considered unstoppable, was eradicated. Within 4 hours, the remaining Scifi forces surrendered. Grand Marshal Vrash stood in stunned silence, watching his empire's greatest warriors fall like insects before these terrifying creations. The humans had always been adaptable, but this was something else. The Empire's fall, word of the massacre at Tarsus IV, spread through the Scifi Empire like wildfire. Fear turned into panic. For years, the Empire had waged war on the humans, seeing them as inferior. Now they realized their mistake. Humanity had not been losing, they had been preparing. And now, they had unleashed something unstoppable. One by one, Solari worlds surrendered without a fight. Their commanders refused to face the Warbeasts. Entire fleets fled into deep space, hoping to escape the wrath of humanity. Within a week, the war was over. Within a month, the mighty Solari Empire, which had lasted thousands of years, was no more. Aftermath, the terror of humanity. Decades later, in the ruins of what was once the Solari capital, a small group of survivors huddled together, whispering among themselves. They did not speak of the war. They did not speak of the human fleets or their weapons or their soldiers. They spoke only of the Warbeasts. Creatures that should not exist. Creatures that learned. Creatures that had turned the tide of war in mere hours. And the most terrifying thing of all? The humans had created them because in the end, it was never about technology. It was never about strategy. It was about humanity's will to survive. And when faced with extinction, they had done what they always did. They evolved. And they won.